The end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, you can see on that sharp interactive board, I brought back Peter Kujawa, and Peter Kujawa heads up Service Leadership. And Service Leadership is the world's largest database of analytics around IT services. All the numbers, folks. And I don't know, it was about a week ago I did an episode and I referenced the latest Service Leadership report. But I wanted to bring Peter on today because we want to talk about compensation. Compensation is a big deal. We all see the cost of human capital keeps going through the roof, and they're putting together the largest database of compensation of IT providers around the world. It's great information, and I think all my dealer friends could benefit greatly from that info. So, Peter, it's fantastic having you back on the end of the day with Ray. How are things going, buddy?
Hey, they're great, Ray. Nice to be back with you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Peter, compensation is a big deal. Recently I had my friend Milton Bartley on from ImageQuest down there in Nashville, and he was talking about the cost of human capital and the increases of those costs, especially over these last 18, 24 months. And I know that Service Leadership puts together data on a compensation worldwide, and I think you guys are updating that right now, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring you on. So let's just start there. Tell me about this report and share some insights to help our dealers get interested enough to pay attention to it, if you will.
Yeah, you bet. A couple of aspects to it, Ray. Service Leadership, as you mentioned, we do the largest database. Every quarter we benchmark the IT services industry worldwide, and nobody has any data like us on financial benchmarking. But the one area of data that I get hit up on almost on a weekly basis is for compensation data. As you mentioned, especially this year with all of the increases, it's been crazy the last few years, but past year has been really, really bad for inflationary pressures on compensation. So I get asked all the time, what's the comp that I should be paying for this? What's the comp these days for this position? What's the rate of increase we should be looking at? And the reality is, while we had some anecdotal information, we didn't have any concrete information to the level that we like to have it. So we are relaunching a product that Service Leadership had up until 2016, which was our compensation benchmarking report. And it'll be over 50 positions, and it'll include G&A positions, back office. It'll include a variety of technical positions, different levels within support, security, engineering, and it'll include sales and account management. So really comprehensive data. It'll also talk about what the rate of increase was on average in 2022, what the anticipated rate of increase will be in 2023. And so it'll be regional. We'll cut up the data in a number of ways. As you know, you've read through our annual report, so you know how much detail we can get into. This will be the same. It'll be about 300 pages of data that anybody subscribing to the report will receive. We'll have the report in March, and it'll be about $1,700 for a copy of the report. But let me share my screen with you.
Yeah.
Exciting news for anybody watching this today is anybody who gets their data in to our system by the end of the day, this Friday, December 16th, will get a free copy of the report in March. So
Awesome.
As soon as it's released, our report will be going out to anybody who provided their data into us, and they'll get it at no charge. So huge benefit to anybody who puts their data in for the report. And the data, it's been coming in. It's amazing the amount of data that we've been getting already. And we're getting it just like we do with our benchmarking sample every quarter. We're getting it from all over North America, EMEA, APAC, all over the world. So it really should be a great report.
Well, we need the information, that's for sure. And I know that, I want to kind of pivot into a conversation around peer groups and around how we are collecting intelligence around IT from the perspective of the document imaging channel, those friends of ours that sell supply and service print that have been moving into IT for well over a decade. And last time I had you on was about 10 months ago, and we were talking a little bit about peer groups. And I still see and fear what I see. I should say it that way. I fear what I still see, where we may be in peer groups, but we're in peer groups together. And this has always been a problem of mine. And I know that Service Leadership has their peer groups, and they put the individuals in peer groups with people that are doing similar processes around IT, but for the most part, they're IT companies. And I don't see a benefit with a bunch of copier dealers getting together to talk about IT because they're all trying to build something that's brand new, and what are they really benchmarking? So can you just highlight the importance of the right peer group? Because quite honestly, Peter, our industry's got to make some serious evaluations of all the peer groups they're in.
Yeah, as you know, Ray, I came from this channel, so I ran an IT company for about 12 years. About 10 of that was under the ownership of a large regional office technology company. So I've attended a lot of different meetings over the years for both in the office technology channel and in the IT channel. And what I could tell you is I'm not a great golfer, but I certainly don't get better when I'm golfing with higher handicaps than me. If that's the group, if we're a group of handicaps that are higher than me, none of us are very good golfers. So none of us are going to make each other better, most likely. And so there's something to be learned in both environments. I think definitely office technology companies have some unique challenges from a systems perspective with IT. And so there's some things that they can learn from each other there. But to really learn how to deliver managed IT services in a way that Milton laid out on your episode, and in a way that's who you're competing with. And so my message to any office technology dealers out there is, don't measure your IT operation compared to each other. Measure your IT operation relative to the top performers in your marketplace, because that's who your buyers are measuring your IT operation compared to. That's who your clients are. That's who your employees are, your prospective employees are. So it's really critical that you understand what the best practice is and what's driving success in equivalent size or larger IT operations, where all they do all day long is wake up and think about they sleep, they eat, they drink IT all day. That's all they're focused on is IT services. As a result, they tend to be better at it. And so we have a lot of IT operations within office technology dealerships that we work with. We've got about a half a dozen that are members of the service leadership peer groups today. But they're in groups and they're surrounded by other standalone IT operations. So they're really evaluating themselves and they're participating within the groups compared to roughly equivalent size standalone IT operations. And so I think it's a different dynamic. Our service leadership peer groups are under the Evolve umbrella within IT Nation under ConnectWise. And in total, if you add the service leadership group members and you add the Evolve group members, that's about 550 IT companies that are meeting every quarter to compare best practices to each other. And so I would encourage anybody who's trying to build an IT operation within an office technology dealer to join one of those groups. I think you'll get a lot out of it. And that's not to say you need to stop participating in your other peer groups that you do for imaging. I think there's a huge value to those. But if you really want to know what's driving success today in IT, you're seeing it within the IT standalone peer groups.
Well, I think, that always goes back to the root of the problem. The root of the problem, in my opinion, and I was in this group. I was in service leadership when I was with Milton, so I understand what the goals were of service leadership. But when you look at a bunch of copier dealers, if you will, where the core deliverable is print, and that core deliverable of print is providing nearly all of their revenue and all of their profits, and they're trying to build this IT business, most of them kind of on top of that or intermingled with that. But it's not a standalone IT company, and it really needs to be. They need to start looking at their IT as its own business model with its own processes, and quit being so naive that it's going to be able to just integrate with this copier business. And the only way they're going to truly be able to do that is to hang around with the folks that's all they do. Their whole life is around IT.
Yeah, for sure. The levers of success, the levers that drive profitability, they're really, really different. And so getting your arms around what those levers are, how to drive customer success, how to drive quality with your deliverables, how to drive your go-to-market, all of these things they're fundamentally different. So surrounding yourself with other IT providers who've really delivered on this quarter in and quarter out and have grown their operations, have achieved an operational maturity level that's high enough. These are the people you really want to learn from the most when it comes to IT. So if you join a peer group, and by the way, this is a great time to join a peer group. December is when we look at our group assignments for the following year, 2023. So both Evolve and Service Leadership peer groups, we're taking a look at new members coming in, what groups they should go in, and any moves, adds, and changes we need to make in those groups. So this is a really, really good time of the year to join a new group and be ready for the new year.
No, I agree, and they should at least be evaluating it. I think we need to evaluate everything we've been doing over the last 3 or 4 years as an industry and make the necessary changes to move forward. But, this human capital thing is very interesting to me, too. I want to ask you a question on that. When you collect the data, you're collecting it worldwide from IT providers. We're trying to get our print providers to share their data, too. Is there any way that you could take the data just from the print sector and isolate that out in its own report? Is that something you're even interested in doing, or have you talked about that? Because to me, I think when you look at it when you look at the IT world in itself, I think the slap in the face to the industry of the print dealers is going to be how much they're probably underpaying and they're not prepared for what's coming to begin with. And if you look at it as a separate entity, you might see the number differences, and I think they'll be drastic.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Ray. This report will be exclusively focused on IT services, so we won't have any data that we're collecting on the office technology part of the business. And I don't think we have the ability to segment that data and just carve out the OT dealers in it.
No. So
we're not asking a question as to who is and who isn't an OT dealer in the sample. But it's an interesting question. We'll take a look at it for the future. We're always looking at our reports aren't long enough at 300 pages, Ray. We're always looking at ways we can make them longer, right?
Well, I'm thinking that
carve up the data even more.
Well, I'm thinking of it this way: if let's just say that the dealers that send in their data, I mean, it would be a little bit of work, but we could isolate who those dealers are. Let's say that. So once we isolate who those dealers are, maybe we could extrapolate just the data around their IT human capital costs, because that's really what I'm thinking of. An example is, a copier dealer might take a ex-service manager and put them in charge of a help desk for IT, and realistically they could be way underpaying what they really need to have to be running a help desk for an IT services company, if you will. Or they could take a technician that has some computer skills and they're going to call them a server admin, but they're way underpaying for what a real server admin would be. And if they could understand the differences between what they're doing in reality, it would help them focus more on making sure they can deliver it to the marketplace the right way and profitable. Because when your core deliverable is print, you can make up for a lot of mistakes or a lot of poor management when you're bringing in revenue and profit from another deliverable to offset what you're not doing right in the IT deliverable.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something we'll need to take a look at. I've definitely seen those business practices with some of the low OML folks who try to get into the business early on, and definitely used to see a lot more of that 8, 10, 12 years ago, as the model was that was the model that was advised by a lot of quarters in the industry to go. I'm not seeing that as much anymore, so hopefully the providers who tried that have learned their lesson and have really moved past it. But it is something that we certainly could take a look at.
Okay. Well, Peter, it's always great to look at that data. Like you said, it's a lot of data. Some of the critiqueness, if you will, of the Service Leadership Report is it's too complicated. Our friends would tell me that the report's too complicated, and so is IT services. But you really have to understand the data, and you have to be willing to look and investigate what's going on in the marketplace before you attempt to deliver it remarkable anyway. So
yeah, I would add, I hear that from time to time, and success is always complicated. There's always, if you're going to do things the right way, it always is going to take a little bit more work. What I hear a lot from providers is the first quarter or two of benchmarking is tougher, but once you're set up and once you've got your process to enter the data, and once you get the hang of what the reports are telling you, that it's not really that complicated, and that the value of the data provided and the impact that it makes both on you operationally and on your profitability are more than worth any investment in time and effort that goes into it. If if nothing else, there's a couple of KPIs within our reports that we always advise people start off with. And there's some things that right out of the gate you can go to, and you don't have to go through every single line of data and make a plan on how you're going to get value out of every single KPI in the report. You can start with two, three, four different things that you're trying to improve on, and start from there, right? And learn where you've got the biggest opportunities for improvement. And our report is laid out in a way that pretty quickly tells you that. So, and by the way, Ray, anybody who has been thinking of starting to benchmark or use Sleek or get our annual report, forgot to mention earlier, in December, we have a really unbelievable deal going.
Okay.
Buying those products separately prior to us being acquired by ConnectWise would have run you about $10,000 or $12,000 a year.
Okay.
ConnectWise came out with a bundle for $4.99 a month. And in the month of December, to try to really drive more participation for 2023, they discounted that bundle down to $3.99 a month. So anybody who's watching this, if you've been thinking about benchmarking, you've been thinking about maybe looking at Sleek and how you can use that to get better, you'll never get a better time to buy in. $3.99 a month is an unbelievable deal. So
no, that's sweet. So we'll put a link to you so they can get a hold of you and they get all that information. But obviously,
yeah, they can to subscribe to that. They can contact their ConnectWise rep as well. Mm-hmm. Any of them can get them hooked up on it.
Well, let's set a time sometime and do an episode on Sleek itself. And I think that's important for dealers to understand that process. And I'm a big fan of it because I was partaked in that process and it worked out. And that's why I'm so excited to bring Milton on every once in a while, because he's a guy that did all these things that Paul Dipple before told him to do, and it obviously worked. And more of my friends need to do what works instead of chasing some fantasies or rabbits. Is there anything you want to add before we end?
No, first of all, I enjoyed the Milton episode. Milton runs a great operation and definitely is very high operational maturity level OML. So that was great that you had him on.
No, he's just a great guy, and a lot of people will talk about they're knocking out of the bark and how great they are, but Milton's one of the very few that'll share his numbers. He's proud of what he's built. He's proud of his team, and he's trying to help inspire people to do it the right way. And the right way is not easy. There's no damn easy button. It's called a business plan. It's called thought leadership. It's called bringing the right people to the plate. And it's, the human capital costs are more and more every day, like we just talked about. So, we got to stop thinking of it as being, we're positioned perfectly to be IT providers because we sold people print equipment. Just when I hear that, I cringe.
Yeah, there's a lot of lessons that have been taught for years and years that need to be unlearned. But success is certainly possible in the industry. I spoke at IT Nation Connect in Orlando last month, and nice to see you there, by the way. I hope you enjoyed the event.
That was great.
One of the things that I spoke about is that success is definitely possible for OT dealers and IT. And yeah, there's a lot of dealers today that are struggling. Way too many, frankly. The industry overall has had 2 great years, 2020, 2021, and we think 2022, when it's all finished up and we run the year's full financials, will be another record year. So if you're not succeeding today, you should be. The benchmarking we do, as you know, about 35% of the industry last quarter lost money, but the rest of the industry is doing pretty well, and we have the top quartile folks are doing extremely well. And so what we've seen is that there's definitely OT dealers who are succeeding today in IT. We work with a lot of them. I see a lot of their data, and so there are dealers that are doing well in IT. They're growing it. It's a profit center for them. It's a growth engine for them. But there's too many today that aren't. So if you're one that's not, and you want to figure out how to build your business successfully, or if you're one that you're flying your plane just above treetops and you've got an IT business, it's maybe growing a little bit, but it's taking too much of your time up, it's not generating profit. There's help, right? I mean, find out the right way to do things, and joining a peer group, benchmarking, all these are things that will help you improve.
Well, it's not about getting comfortable. It's about surrounding yourself with people that will help you get better. Peter, it's always great having you on because everybody knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo. We'll see you all tomorrow.